So you found that nice Quantanium rock. Now what? Well, hopefully you are prepared for dealing with the volatility of Quantanium, the instability of Quantanium. And that is going to be mitigated by a couple of things. Number one, that's going to be mitigated by a Lancet MH1 mining laser. And number two, it's going to be mitigated by a brand module. This is currently in 3.18.2 that you're going to use these mechanics, and these mechanics have a shelf life. Things may be changing in 3.19, but at least for now, let's talk about how to properly crack this rock. So we've got the Lancet MH1. We want to make sure that we it's a good idea. Like, I like having the sun in the left-hand part of the UI or the port side. I like putting the dark side of the rock into the starboard side or right side of the UI to build a little contrast here. And then when we first turn on our laser, you can see that, like, the ship's kind of moving along when I move. If you hold down G, it actually loosens up the laser a little bit, so you have some articulation that you can do with it. You can move the laser head around without necessarily moving the whole ship. The other thing is it's very important to get the range just right. There's the optimal range. I generally will get pretty darn close. And don't notice this is a nice rock too. This is a 4931 at 40%. So right now my laser intensity is set to 0. Let's go ahead and crank that up. Now, a couple of things. In 3.18.2, once you're inside the optimal window, definitely there's been a little bit of a change. Things are a little more unstable inside the optimal window than they used to be. So you really do need to pay very close attention when you are mining Quantanium for sure. So, as you can see here, I've got my charge level now. My laser intensity set to 100%. My charge level is climbing. It's at about, 30% or so, maybe 25%. And it, because this is a rock that has an instability of fairly high, it will take a little bit of time to build some energy into this. A couple of beautiful things about the Iron Halo when it comes to solo prospecting. Number one, the largest rock you're going to find is only 5122. So you're never going to come across a size rock that you can't mine in the Iron Halo. Number two, as the rock cracks, you never are going to lose any secondary pieces. They're not going to fall into the geometry or have a great big piece of junk on top of them that you're not going to be able to kind of work around where you can scoop it. So, and of course you have all the anonymity in the Iron Halo as well. So you can see here we're still building charge level. And it does, like I said, when you have a nice Quantanium rock, it does take a minute or two to build the charge level into the optimal. Now, as soon as it gets into the optimal, you'll see me be about midway through the optimal. You'll see me begin to kind of pull the laser intensity down to around 50%, and then really articulate from there. I'm tending to find that it's usually sometimes you have to go down to say 20%. It's definitely very volatile once it gets inside the optimal window. It's a little different than it used to be. Now, you can fire a brant. I don't generally fire brants on the first break, but if you're really struggling, there's no reason not to. Brants are very inexpensive. They have 5 charges, and they're, you're going to make 275,000 or better on this rock. So, a couple thousand is just the price of doing business. That's not a bad investment to make things go so much smoother for you. So you can see here, I'm just kind of talking my way through this. It's slowly building up the charge level. It will absolutely happen. There's no 4931s that don't crack in the Iron Halo with the Lancet. They all do. So, every 5122, every one of them will crack in the Iron Halo. So we're just jumping into the optimal now. Oh, you can see it fell out a touch. No big deal. Like I said, I'm not really going to react until it gets about halfway through. And there, it's about halfway through. Now, notice I rolled back to 70. I'm keeping an eye on it. It's building up more. I'm going to roll down to 45. And I'm just going to kind of keep feathering the laser intensity up and down based on what the optimal green window is up to. You know, like I will actually lower it down sometimes to 25-30% if I have to. There's a very clean break. Look at it, it's at 28%. It held nicely, and that was a very clean break, and we'll just kind of watch what it does here. So once this breaks, what we want to do is we want to scan all of the secondary pieces, because we are going to have to break them all down a second time in order for us to get them to a state where they're extractable. So you can see what's going on here is we do have Xeno Threat, and Xeno Threat is causing a little bit of server lag. No question about it, and it's taking a little bit of time for this rock to crack. But that's not unusual. There it goes. It finally did. It cracked. And now what we want to do is we want to start taking a look at the individual pieces here, right? So we'll go down here and we'll just kind of scan them. And you can see the way that it broke is kind of interesting. So there's an 11% piece there. Let's just go ahead. Once again, you want to scan every one of these pieces. This is going to have nothing in it. The reason I know that is because it's a big, fat, wide green optimal window and not a lot of red in it. So, but I also did let it finish getting its scan in. This is going to be 100% more than likely, or darn close to it. Yep, that's 18 SCU of the good stuff right there. So, and why do I know that's 18 SCU? It's because it's the mass times 2 will give you the SCU. So, you know, I happen to know that's a 923 mass. So, you know, 9 and 9 is 18. That's how you're going to get, that's 18 SCU right there. So let's take a look at this rock here. This rock also will have nothing in it. Notice it's a big fat green, bar there. There's a couple more to scan here. This is also going to have nothing in it. And this guy here should have a fairly high percentage. This is a 1209, and this is a 82%er. So yeah, so we're in really good shape right now. It's never a bad idea sometimes to just kind of, you want to have some situational awareness, but just double check that there wasn't another rock kind of sitting behind that one there. So it's always wise to break up the smallest percentages first. So I'm going to break up this 11%er, then I'm going to break up this 80%er, and then I'm going to break up this 100%er. And then I'm going to scoop or extract in the opposite mode. I'm going to get all these hundos first, and then I will go up to the 80s and that really probably will fill me up. There more than likely is, because this is a 1209 at 82%. There is definitely, there is 16 SCU or so in this guy right here, and there is in here there is 18 SCU. So really, I don't actually even need to break up that one. So why not? I'll just go ahead and not do it. Now, sometimes it's good to have some extra, just in case an extra 20%er breaks or something. But I think there's plenty of extra here where I'll only have to do the 2 breaks. So let's go ahead and we're going to break this one down first. Now I am going to use a brand. That's going to be Alt 1 is going to fire my brand, or Alt 2 or 3. So I fired my brand. Notice I immediately, as soon as it got up into the power critical, I turned off my laser intensity almost entirely. You have to be really careful, even with these smaller size rocks in the optimal window. It is very, very volatile. It will move up and down quite a bit, a lot different than it used to. So I'm just kind of articulating my laser intensity between 8 and say 13%. Sometimes I'll drop it down to 5 or 0 to stop it. What I'm trying to do is just get this guy to get through the entire optimal. It fell out there for just a touch, no big deal. I always recommend flirting with the optimal line more than the overcharge line, of course. If it falls out, it falls out. That's okay. What you don't want it to do is get into the red at all and overcharge. And so, it was being a little stubborn, but we were able to get the break, no problem. And now it's time to move on to this other rock. Now, you can see that this is, it didn't break that fast. It took there's a little bit of lag, but it did break for sure. So same kind of gig here. I'm just going to go ahead and crank up the, crank it up to say 20-25%, get it up towards the green, and then I'll start falling it back, because you're only really going to need like 6-7%, maybe 9-10% at the most. I'm going to fire a second brant right there. A lot of times you can break 2 secondary rocks with 1 brant charge if you're really efficient. In this particular case, it was being, it was kind of falling in and out, no big deal. Notice I'm at about 9% here, and we'll just kind of work our way through this. I'm going to drop it off to 6. You can see it was headed up towards the overcharge. Now it's falling back down. Now I'm going to kind of go back up to 11, and then just kind of keep, feathering it back and forth, putting good intensity in there when it needs to be, dropping it off when I get close to the overcharge. Don't be afraid to turn off the laser if for some reason it gets into the overcharge. So we know, because this is 100% rock, that every single thing we extract is going to be 100%er. We don't even need to mess around with that at all. There's that 11%er there, no big deal. So we're just going to go ahead and get started. So, notice I turned on the laser and turned it off for just a second. I wanted to make sure that it was in extraction mode. There sometimes can be some lag where it still thinks it's in mining mode. So a little tipper trick there. And the mining laser, the extraction laser is staying on a little longer than it traditionally normally would disappear right as the rock kind of goes away. But and it is doing a pretty good job. But if it's really laggy on the server, you do have to be careful that it's not scooping rocks behind it, because the laser stays on. It does do that a little bit. So, like I said there, that was a very, very nice rock, that particular one. And this is going to get us around 19 SCU or so, 18, 19 SCU. So there's the 18 SCU. Now, remember, this was an 80%er up here. So what we have to do to be very careful is we do have to scan all these rocks. Now, we could have scanned them kind of before we began, but as long as we scan them, if they're 100%ers, we can absolutely pull them on in. This is a nice, 284, which is, almost, over 5 SCU rock. So beautiful rock there. We're at now 23 SCU. We'll go ahead. That's 100% inert. What's this guy here? Let's go ahead and take a look. 175, and this is a 73%er. So notice, we did not scoop that one. We want to prioritize the 100%ers if we can, because that's the pure Quantanium. All right, we're taking that in now. And we're crossing 27 SCU. That's great. Let's go ahead and scan on this guy. And that looks like it's also going to be 100%er. Let's pull him in. And this is going to get us close. Now, if this isn't quite 100%er, I think it's going to be. But if it's not, we would definitely, it'll be interesting. So this did end up being 100%er. And this is actually going to be all we need to kind of top us off. So this is a full unicorn run of Quantanium. I'm going to go ahead and I'll go ahead and pull the laser in. I'm going to back away. I'm going to look behind me. I'm just going to back away from the rocks now. And now I'm just going to spool up my quantum drive and start heading back to ArcL4. So anyways, I just thought this would be a useful tipper trick video for you to learn kind of some basics about, just Quantanium, cracking, solo prospecting a little bit, and I hope this served you well. And I will see you all around the verse.